everybody. Welcome back to our podcast. That's Kyle over there.
I am Kyle over here.
He's doing a great job of being Kyle and being over there.
Thank you.
In this podcast, we poorly talk about futuristic topics.
It's called Getting Ahead of Ourselves. We have a name this time.
We do.
The name has been there for the past 3 times. We just didn't know what it was the first 2 times.
That's true. I guess it's still technically named. We just didn't address it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kyle, I have a big question for you.
What?
What do you mean, what?
What's the question? Get on with it.
I don't like the way you said what. You don't like my questions, Kyle?
I love your questions. You have the best questions.
Okay, thank you. So, Kyle, how much of your body would you have to remove and replace with something else for it to still be considered you?
This is actually I think it's like a Greek parable or something. It's very common.
Is it?
Yeah. The ship of Theseus. Have you not heard of this?
No.
It's the it's that question. The parable is like I hope it's Theseus and not a different name, or I'm sounding dumb.
There's a good chance that that's the name because it sounds right.
Sure, it sounds Greek-ish, right?
Yeah.
Once again, a reminder: we have no idea what we're talking about, and there's a great chance that most of the information we say is absolute garbage.
This is untrue. Since our last podcast, I have gotten my degree in science.
I must have missed that.
Yeah. I'm a PhD doctor.
Anyway, the ship of Theseus is a parable about a ship that I don't know the story. I don't know why the ship was important. It was a ship. It was Greek. It was old. It lasted a long time, and the people on the ship slowly keep changing out the pieces of the ship. And the question is, at what point is it no longer Theseus's ship because you've swapped out so many different pieces that it's now made of entirely different materials than the original ship? The more simplified version of this is usually, I think, like a broom is the one that people use. Like if you have a broom and you change the handle and then later you change the brush, is it still the original broom, or is it now a new broom?
Why brooms? Why is brooms the
I
thing
have no
that people
idea. These are
bothered
just
to
the
care
ones
about?
that I've heard. The human version of this is actually that every X number of years, all of your cells supposedly all of your original cells have died and been replaced by new ones. And so...
But you said that takes like 20 years, right?
It is a long time. It's something like 20 years. I don't remember the exact number. But
That is a long time, because at that point, my cells have only rejuvenated once or whatever.
But then the question is, like, are you technically the same person that you were 20 years ago, like physically, if every single cell is technically new, including the ones in your brain and everywhere else in your body? So
well, but
it's an interesting philosophical question.
It is, but you didn't answer it.
Nope. That's not the point of philosophy. You ask the questions and you wait.
When did this become a philosophical podcast?
That's all this is. We don't have credentials. It's only a philosophical podcast.
No, I have a PhD doctorate.
What does the PH stand for in your version?
Possibly PH. Right. I'm so tired. Possibly educated.
Okay.
No, I apologize. I apologize for that entire thing that just happened. Right. Okay. So
why do you ask? This is the philosophical way. We ask the question. Now, why are we asking the question, Allison?
Well, because I need to know if my friends are really my friends. No, this is not it. I'm mildly curious. Well, okay, so I read an article a really long time ago, and I've read other things sort of talking about this, and the thing that got my attention was this phenomenon where people who have had body, like organ transplants, have had memories or dreams or thoughts that they feel like don't necessarily belong to them and that they would attribute to the person who had them previously.
Right, and I'm pretty sure every time you've brought this up, I've given you a wacky sitcom straight man look.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't seem to be on the side of whimsy here. I am curious though. I guess I just want to kind of dive into it. I've brought the topic up mildly, but I've never actually dove into the topic. I've been saving it for this podcast.
That is the point of this, I guess. We've brought up a lot of variations on a topic on a range of topics here, I feel like.
Yeah, that's
which
definitely
is,
accurate.
Are you the same person throughout your whole life if your body is constantly being replaced?
Yeah, sure.
And if you accelerated that process manually, does that change anything? And how, I guess.
Well, so how would you feel if we took all of your organs out and gave you someone else's organs?
Probably in a lot of pain for a little while.
Sure, that is
but
that is
then
the obvious thing
after
to
that,
say.
if it worked out fine, I don't know. That's honestly a really good question. I feel like we do just keep asking questions, but it's kind of like that thing, like
Well, then
like
answer
if
'em.
a head transplant worked and you got your head transplanted onto somebody else's body, do you consider that your body?
Bam,
now that
bam.
you're controlling
Bam,
it.
bam. Just answer the question, though. How would you feel?
I think I would eventually feel pretty okay with it. I think if that were commonplace, bodies would feel less personal, which I think would be a very strange departure from where we currently are. Because right now your body is really the only thing that I think everyone agrees is like definitely yours and you have absolute control over, and there's
Sure.
no blurring those lines at all.
Right, and there's even laws about it.
Right.
Like,
And other blank spaces where laws should be, but maybe
Right.
aren't yet.
that's totally fair. But like, so if you did have someone, like, you knew for a fact that like your kidney belonged to George.
Sure,
How
that
does-
happens.
How does this make you feel?
George probably has donated some kidneys.
Yeah. George probably has.
I don't know. I mean, I've honestly never, unlike the last two episodes, this isn't something I've really thought about all that much.
Yeah,
I've
it's
never
kinda-
had to have an actual just organ transplant before.
Right. Well, so I'll talk about a little bit of my experience because when I was in treatment, I obviously got constant blood transfusions.
Sure.
And just as a quick plug, real fast, donate blood. Always, always, always donate blood. Now it's a really tough time, but we're actually having issues with people not, like, we're running out of blood at different hospitals and places because people aren't leaving because they're not donating blood. But literally always donate blood. I'm only here today because people continue to do that throughout their lives. So if you're curious, go do it. I can't because I don't pass the qualifications for, having had blood
You
cancer.
got bad blood.
Yeah, I had bad blood. But yeah, I remember thinking multiple times it's a weird sort of thing to think about because it's not so much a physical feeling as it is. It's not even physical. It's not even quite emotional. It's this other weird thing that I think humans can occasionally tap into, which is this sort of existential weirdness that we like touch up on, and it's weird
Yeah.
to think about that for our own bodies. But I regularly went in and had other people's bloods like pumped through my entire body to keep me alive for
Right.
years and years. And obviously, like, we know that blood regenerates, and point is, I remember thinking
So
about that
what
a
did that
lot.
do? Did it feel like your body was less yours because it came from an external source?
We
or
used to
did it...
joke about how I felt like sort of a mutant superhero at the time, because when I would go into have my blood transfusions,
Yeah.
I felt like a new person,
Right.
but not like someone else necessarily.
Well,
but
that
it
was because you were getting oxygenated
energy.
blood
Right,
like pumped
right.
into you. I mean, that's just a
Right.
chemical reaction at that point.
Because by the time I'm going in to get blood transfusions, my blood was bad.
Yeah.
In my mind, because I was 12, my blood just like regularly turned into like tar, and then I would go in for a blood transfusion. Like when they change oil in a car,
Right.
like it gets thick and sticky, and then this is awful. But yeah, no, and so I was just like a whole different person. But I used to just sort of casually think about the idea that like someone else's blood somewhere is now in my body and it's keeping me going, and it's just sort of a weird feeling. I never necessarily felt the attachment to said person because I didn't know who they were. But if they had been named, I bet it would have might have
Sure.
changed it even a little bit to personify the idea that like there are people out there who are literally sharing parts of their existence in a physical sense, like their body with other people, and
Yeah.
that I was a person that benefited from that happening. it's just kind of a weird thing. I'm so sorry, that shouldn't have happened. But yeah, so I definitely had thoughts about it at some point in my life, but I feel like that's the very lowest scale, because I think
Sure.
some people have had blood transfusions in their life without it being a big deal, and then like the on the high end of this, you have like heart transplants and lung transplants and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's all really interesting and like a very empathetic sort of like existential, emotional viewpoint of it and everything. But I have my answer now, and I've already gone way past any of this stuff and built. My sci-fi world is now constructed.
okay, let's hear it. I'm glad I gave you enough time. All right.
I hadn't thought about it before, but I was able to put it all together in like 5 minutes, so I'm good to go now.
Good.
Okay,
go.
so the whole thing, human bodies currently are very, it's part of your identity, very like entirely, right? Like that's what you perceive yourself as, is your body. But human brains actually do this really amazing thing where they can just sort of like take things from the environment and just sort of absorb them and just be like, you are now part of me. Like, this is now part of me now.
Okay.
It's why people can get prosthetics and come to feel like that as part of their own body.
Yeah.
And there's even things showing like there's ways to remap the way your brain pulls in sensory information. Like one of the really interesting ones I read about years ago was somebody did some kind of a test with a blind person where they put like a camera on their head going forward. I assume they consented to this.
Sure.
It didn't specify, but they put a camera on their head going forward, and then they put, basically, the way it was described in my head, I pictured one of those toys that's like the board with all the pins in it, and you push your hand into the pin, and it makes like the shape of your hand.
Yeah.
They put that on their back.
Oh.
And it was electronically controlled so that each individual pin could kind of push into their back or pull out. And they converted the light information from the camera from a scale of black to white.
How do you know about this?
Onto the, I don't remember. Okay. But they converted that to the board on their back. Was basically a grid of pixels, right? But the pixel definition from white to black was specified by how far extended each peg was.
Hold up. A lot of things have happened. Is this board still on the blind guy?
Yes, it is still on the blind guy's back.
So he has a board attached to his back and a camera attached to his head?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. And they're connected to each other, and the pixel information from the camera is being fed into the grid on his back of pegs that can extend or retract based on the data coming in from the camera. So like if it's completely black on that pixel, it doesn't extend at all. If it's completely white, it extends all the way. So it starts making a grid system on his back. After wearing this for about a day or two, his brain started remapping that information as visual information because it would change as he was turning. And so it was using the physical sensory information from the little pins like poking into his back and translating that into visual imagery in his mind.
Wow.
And replacing, like rewriting the vision, because it didn't have actual visuals coming in through his eyes anymore.
Right.
And they've actually shown through like MRIs and stuff that the brain actually, like the flow of electricity through the brain changes. It will actually remap itself and reconnect things. This is why people can like lose pieces of their brain and still keep running, because it'll repurpose certain parts of the brain that were meant for something else into other things.
So is this an example to continue your sci-fi world, or have you finished that? Okay.
Point being, the human brain can take things from the outside world and incorporate it into what it perceives as its body. You actually experience this when driving all the time, like that feeling of like you can feel how far away the car is from things.
Oh yeah.
It's that's sort of like what your brain does, is it's like this is an extension of me.
Yeah.
So I think right now most people feel very comfortable within their own body and it feels very personal. But I could totally see getting to a point where people are much more comfortable just sort of like viewing their bodies as whatever collection of pieces they currently have obtained. It's a very weird mindset to imagine now, because I'm very attached to the arms and legs and limbs and organs that I've had since I was born. But maybe that's just because that's, the norm. It's just the way that it's what's familiar. Human brains are pretty adaptable though, so I think there is definitely a point where people could feel less personally attached to their bodies, and it could become much more commonplace.
So let me ask you something.
I could see myself getting to that point even. I think it, as much as I...
Well, that's because you have a sort of weird, like, fantasy about it, though. You obviously have a sort of...
I'm also very
preference for like sci-fi fake arms and limbs and stuff.
I've also usually been very against change, so I don't think I would be up for it initially, but I could see getting to it. I'd probably have to be forced into it, most likely.
How would you feel if you had to have like your arm replaced? Like let's say we're doing arm transplants in the future.
Yeah.
Like we're literally doing arm transplants.
Right.
How would you feel if your arm was now like a different color than the rest of your body? A real human arm. But someone else's skin tone.
I think if the alternative was not having an arm, I'd be fine with it.
Right. Well, I think ultimately the correct opinion is I have an arm.
Right.
But like, do you think there would be side effects? Do you think there'd be disassociation issues or like maybe even phantom limbs of your own arm?
I assume we're like looking past any just complications of a supposed surgery, right? We're just assuming like a perfect one-to-one transplant of an arm.
Your arm
like,
works.
Everything works fine. There's no rejections of it or anything like that.
It's just that it doesn't look like your other arm.
Right.
But it looks like an arm.
It would definitely. I mean, yeah, it would have to do something psychologically, right? It's like
Sure.
It would definitely be weird. I feel like it would be less weird if it was like a robot arm or something.
I agree.
Because then it's like that's a machine that was built for this purpose. It was new when I received it.
Yeah.
But it is almost kind of weird, like just psychologically, of like this arm was attached to another person.
Yeah.
For 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And this arm may have been more places than I have.
So do you think it's specifically weirder because you can visualize it, or do you think there's a difference between having someone else's arm and having someone else's heart?
I don't think there's specifically a difference, but it's an interesting point because it definitely feels weirder when it's external. Something about that feels stranger.
I guess it's just
than
a
if
constant
it's just,
visual
because I don't know
reminder.
what my heart's doing in there. I haven't seen it. Like I know it's there because I'm alive.
That's
but
true. Well, so let's say that your arm was replaced to look exactly the way that it was, but it still was someone else's. I mean, because so that what's kind of interesting is like surgical procedures like that, they actually try to do that. The ultimate goal, like I don't know about arms, but for different surgeries where they have to replace physical,
like facial reconstruction and stuff like that.
Yeah, just any kind of yes. The goal is to make it look as much like your previous self as possible because I do think there are negative consequences, like mental consequences of your brain rejecting it and also your mental state being heavily impacted, having disassociation with it. Like I think there could be. This is all complete speculation. I have lost no limbs and have none replaced.
I mean,
organs, but
as usual, somehow this comes back around to regeneration from Doctor Who. I don't know how we hit that point every single time.
It's forever relevant. It's because that's who we are.
If you suddenly looked in the mirror and you looked like a different person or a different being, that would be weird. That would affect you. You associate yourself with your face and with your body, and your physical being is very tied into your mind.
Well, but you know what? As I'm saying this, people get plastic surgery all the time to look different. So
that's
there
true.
There might not be that much of a disconnect if you feel more comfortable looking like someone else.
I would be interested actually in asking the same questions as somebody who has gotten a lot of plastic surgery because I feel like they're further down the line of acceptance of this that I'm already talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think plastic surgery actually is a good way. It's a good starting point to look at because that is already people trying to like experiment with like modular bodies, right? It's like, well, I can just swap this part out if I don't like it.
Yeah. Okay, so bringing it around to another topic.
Okay.
Well, same topic, but another point. Because we've had some conflict on this specific point.
Sure.
But let me start by trapping you. How do you obviously agree with the idea that people experience things like phantom limbs, right?
Right.
That your brain basically attributes events to either having or not having new or missing body parts, right? Mm-hmm. So using that and just absolutely diving off of it because it really doesn't go anywhere easily. It's not a quick connection to make. But so people talk, like people who've had different transplants talk about memories and thoughts and dreams that they don't feel like is theirs. Do you think they're just lying?
So I think I've heard you talk about this. I guess I haven't heard the actual or read any actual accounts, but I've heard you talk about how people that had like internal organ transplants and they claim that they start having weird dreams or memories of lives that aren't theirs, and they think that somehow that got transferred with the organ transplant or something.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I have heard that there are some collections of like neurons within the gut that neuroscientists think may play a very small part in some of our process. That maybe there's a possibility that not all of our mental processing actually happens directly in the brain, because we have a nervous system running throughout our entire body.
That's a good point.
And the brain is still not fully understood, and so they think it is possible that some of that processing can potentially happen in other parts of the body as well.
And so that means to you...
That's very vague. It means that it means maybe there's something there.
Some validity to it. Well, okay, so...
I don't believe entire memories are being transferred with the kidney transplant that you got.
I would agree that not necessarily entire memories, but I do think it's interesting because, like, it kind of brings around to the first question I asked you. Well, not really, but I can spin it. How attached is our personality and our brain to our body? Our, like, body, not just our skin and the way we look in the mirror, but how attached are we to our own organs that we notice, or things could be different with having someone else's who would essentially function better than what we had previously? But are there other side effects of such a thing?
I mean, physical and mental health have been shown to be pretty closely tied into each other.
Yeah.
So I think if something changes there and you can perceive it, that it may very well change something about your mind or your personality as well, because just as a reaction. I do think perception is probably incredibly important.
Sure.
And as an example, actually, have you heard about them using VR to help with phantom limb pain?
No.
Because they've actually had like experimental therapy where they can get amputees into VR headsets where they appear to have a body with the limbs there, and it will actually ease the pain of the phantom limb feeling that you get when you lose your arms. If I don't, not that I'm qualified to explain what this is, but if anybody's unaware of what that is, it's commonly reported that when people get like an arm amputated or a leg or something, they will feel like that limb hurts even though it's not there anymore, just because of mixed signals moving to the brain.
Yeah.
Well, is that also another thing that they feel like it's moving or something?
Well, they feel like they could move it, right? Like it feels like it's there, like they could reach out and grab something, but then obviously.
And some people have extreme pain from it, from what I've heard.
That's true. I have heard that.
But yeah, they've done experiments within VR where it's like you get the appearance of that limb still being there, and then it's almost like I was going to compare it to motion sickness. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's like motion sickness usually happens when there's a discrepancy between what you're seeing and what you're feeling on your inner ear, between like if you're not seeing movement but you're feeling movement, or if you are seeing movement but not feeling movement, which is also something VR causes.
I want to go play VR now.
But I think it's a similar thing where you're feeling something that isn't present, and so they've used virtual reality to imitate the existence of your arm. And that's very perception based, obviously, right? That's like you're tricking yourself into thinking that something is there that isn't there.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me think that a lot of those things, those feelings that people might get from the organ transplant, aren't necessarily invalid, but are based around the fact that they are aware of what happened.
Okay.
I feel like if you somehow snuck an organ transplant into somebody, I would be curious to know if they had the same effect. This goes back to the whole Nazi science thing. We don't do that anymore.
We don't have to. We don't have to go there. But so I have sort of a weird mental game. If you're listening, play along. Weird questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, how attached do you feel to your own organs? Just answer that question real fast, and then I have another follow-up question. Yes.
Well, it's internal organs, not really.
Not at all.
As long as they work, I'm good.
Only
definitely
the ones you
more
can
attached
physically
to the part
see.
that I can see because I'm more familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay, so probably low on that scale. So if we could literally magically just switch let's pick your lungs with equally functioning lungs.
Sure. Can I get better ones at least?
No.
Okay.
No, because then that makes it easy.
Fine.
But your lungs, so we'll just, that's how it works. You snap and now new lungs. But
Okay.
you can identify the person that you're getting them from.
Yeah.
And you're just switching them. Do you think you'd have any issues just accepting that?
Honestly,
mentally.
no. I think I'd just forget.
Yeah?
Yeah, probably.
You don't think you'd ever have any thoughts of like, that guy has my lungs?
I don't think I would, but I think it's because of the disconnect between me, like I don't know what's in there.
Sure.
I just don't. I've never been to a hospital for myself. It's never happened. I've never had to have surgery done.
Yeah.
It may feel very different for people who like you have had to have surgeries done.
Right.
You've had people open you up and do things
Sure.
to your insides.
Yeah.
Most women, they give birth, they have something else
That's
grow
true.
in them at some point, and then they may have to have, C-sections done. Mm-hmm. I'm so disconnected from the inside of me. I don't actually.
Yeah, I'm
so
sort
I
of.
don't think I would feel that way. I think it'd be like if somebody was like, poof, you each now have each other's lungs, I'd be like, that's a weird prank, man, but fine, I guess.
Yeah, that actually kind of sparked a whole new train of thought for me that we won't go into too much, but I wonder if women and men think differently on this because of the different value in their bodies.
I bet they
After
do.
you brought up
I mean-
kids, I was like, I bet women,
yeah,
total
that's a big
speculation.
thing.
Yeah, people tell women how important their bodies are all the time because they have to have babies. So
Yeah.
just like ours are just better.
Well,
Like,
even if you don't, I can't do that. I
Right.
will never think that way because there's never the possibility that I'm going to be growing
it's
another
interesting.
human
I
life
wonder if
inside of
women
me.
are attached to their like uteruses or reproductive system. I'm specifically unattached. I would like it removed entirely. Just get that shit out. Do not enjoy.
Well, that's
I think that's
something right there.
interesting.
There's no part of me I want removed. I don't
Sure,
want, That's
sure.
the thing. I not only so this may offer some insight on where I'm coming from too. Not only do I not know what's going on in there, I want to continue not knowing what's going on in there. As
Yeah.
long as it's working, I have no desire to see it. I don't need x-rays. I don't need anything.
Fair.
I just need a doctor to go, you're still good, and then I can leave and then forget that. I would be fine being a robot, honestly. I've thought this
Yeah.
multiple times.
I feel very differently. We definitely different on this subject, but we have to wrap it up because we're coming to the end.
Okay.
But I feel differently. Not that I disagree with anything that you've said, but I feel this very weird sort of. I wish I had a better word for something that surpasses physicality and emotions and exists in this weird sort of plane of like, I don't know, kind of wherever souls go. Like the idea that
Sure.
just that we're all deeply connected to how our bodies exist and function, and there's the actual science of it, like how our nervous system runs through our bodies and how our brain and our gut communicate with each other and have different effects on our mental health. But it feels a little deeper, and I could see how there's a theory to be made that exchanging organs is like exchanging pieces of individuals, pieces of their lives that you could feel more attached to someone. And you hear about that all the time, like people who
Yeah.
stay in contact with their donors and all that kind of stuff. So I feel a little bit differently, I guess, in that not that I wouldn't mind being a robot, that sounds pretty great in some aspects, but more that I feel like there is this sort of weird overlying level to all
Yeah.
of this that,
Well, I'm going to slip this in here right at the end
yeah, we can do
before
it.
we
Let's
can
do
talk
it.
about it.
Let's do it.
And just throw in 3D organ printing is going to be a thing at some point soon.
Wow.
And you won't even have to be getting it from people. So this destroys both of our arguments.
It's really amazing
And,
that you said that. But I'm gonna wrap up this podcast.
Wait, hold up.
Oh,
I think my point in summary is that I think we will get to a point where it's going to be so readily available to just get brand new but still organic organs that people will just probably come to a point of accepting their bodies as being something that can be like taken care of and updated and being more like a modular machine that they can swap out. I think that's pretty likely that could end up happening. I'll probably have a group of people that are like, body purists that are like, no, same body from birth. But
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you'll probably have
Wow.
a whole group also that will, in following the teachings of Buddhism, decide to detach themselves from worldly things and
They just become a 3D printer.
And yeah, just become a 3D printed person.
No. Anyway, I'm sad you said that, but and I'll explain why. Literally go check out our next podcast where we discuss 3D printing.
Oh, good.
But yeah, so.
I only said it because I needed to get Buddhism in there. I'm not sure if you were following that exact thing.
Oh my goodness. I completely, you have done this again. All right. So we'll end this podcast here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Go ahead and check out, well, I guess our next podcast, we release them monthly, right?
Yep.
So don't go check out our next podcast until it's released because time. But we're going to record it right now.
I mean, if you can, go for it.
Yeah, if that is currently an option, please do it. We need your ears.